Welcome to the 2024 St. Paul String Quartet Competition Virtual Interviews. My name is Ray Shows. I'm first violinist of the Artaria String Quartet and founder and administrator of America's only competitive contest exclusively for string quartets. Welcome, ELYSIAN Quartet.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
ELYSIAN.
ELYSIAN Quartet. My apologies on that. And you guys are all hailing from the Academy at the Chicago Music Institute, but you go to different high schools. So why don't we tell our audience members a couple of things here? Tell them your name, the instrument you play, and where you actually go to high school. And let's start with Vivian.
I'm Vivian. I play viola, and I go to the University School of Milwaukee.
I'm Katarina. I'm 15 years old and I play the cello. I've been playing since I was 3.5 years old, so around 11 years now. I go to Madison Country Day School. It's on the outskirts of Madison.
My name is Kai Soke. I'm 15 years old and I play the violin. I'm actually homeschooled.
And finally, Nolan.
Thank you. I am Nolan Cheng. I play the violin. I attend Northside College Preparatory High School.
Well, welcome to all of you. Let's start with the easy questions. How did each of you get introduced and interested in chamber music? Katarina, why don't we start off with you?
So actually, my grandma on my dad's side of the family had a chamber program, and I was introduced to chamber music by seeing her and her students, but also one of my first chamber music experiences was at the Chicago Suzuki Institute, and me and Kai were actually in a quartet together a few years ago, and that was when we first met. So ever since then, I've kind of fell in love with chamber music, and I've done it through orchestra programs, and now here I am at the Academy.
Kai, what's your story?
So I think that the chamber ensemble with Katarina was actually my first quartet experience. In the beginning, I kind of didn't really like playing in an ensemble. I was like, it's hard to get everybody's idea to like agree on something. And then after like playing for a while, I was like, wow, I really love this, because when I would mess up or something, like everybody has my back. And yeah, I love it.
Super. I'm glad you grew into that. That's great. Nolan, your story, please.
For me, this chamber music experience is interesting because it's a different animal from solo playing, and for that matter, a different animal from orchestral playing. One could say it's a hybrid between those two. It's an in-between. There is a democratic process that occurs wherein 4 members have equal input, or relatively equal input, although they might have different roles. Whereas with solo playing, you deal with yourself and yourself only, which is refreshing in a way. And orchestral playing is on the other end of the spectrum, where you listen to a conductor, and that is the end of that. So what's interesting is finding a balance between those two extremes.
Well put. Vivian, how did you come to chamber music?
I guess when I was like 10, I think this was a really long time ago. I don't know how old I was, but I was part of this Suzuki program. And if you were like one of like your teacher's favorite, you got to play in like a chamber group. And I was really young, like I was in like elementary school, and the 2 boys, it was like a trio, were violinists. And they were like 15, and I was so scared, and I was like, this is the worst thing ever. But actually, it became really fun. And so that's what made me really like it. But at the time, it was a little scary because I was like a little child with these like old people, basically.
I have to laugh heartily when you said it was a really long time ago when you're talking to a guy of my age. But that's okay, Vivian. I get it, because I do remember thinking of time a little differently back in those days. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did the 4 of you coalesce into a string quartet?
The way this works at the Academy of the Music Institute of Chicago is, as with many other programs, random assignment, or not necessarily random, but
Not random.
assigned based on predetermined criteria, and that's how we formed.
Kai, you want to add to that?
No, I think that's exactly how we got together.
And Vivian, yeah.
It's more like it is like that, but Mr. Setupin, the director, he's really great. He like I feel like he really puts time and effort specifically choosing people that he think will like play well together.
Katarina, how did you guys come up with your name?
So we went through a process of finding a name that fit. Well, we were trying to find a name that like fit the qualities that we were hoping to portray as a group. So after some decision making, we came up with the name Elysian, which is actually named after a Greek word, which means to be creative, beautiful, and divinely inspired. So we thought that this name fit our group well because that's what we hoped to portray when we performed.
Oh, beautifully said. Beautifully said. Okay, so now the repertoire that you choose, which is there's so much to choose from, and yet there is really only several hundred major pieces that people play in the chamber music string quartet repertoire. So how did you guys come to your specific repertoire? Let's start with Nolan.
So this was assigned by our coach, Claudia Lazarev-Mironov. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. So she chose pieces presumably based on our ability levels, what would work well as a first piece, a second piece, third piece, so on. And based on, I suppose, hunches of what we would like.
So I was very pleased to see you do the last movement of the Greek, which is a rare customer on this, and as is the Prokofiev. So lovely. Have you guys started your C.T. Perkinson work yet?
We have. We started it like yesterday.
Oh, good. You're not alone. No, these interviews are coming along fairly early now, and so if I called you 2 weeks from now, you'd have had a slightly different answer, or a slightly more knowledgeable answer. But I'm going to ask you this. Let's start with Vivian. What do you think of the C.T. Perkinson? Now it's still very new to you guys, but how are you coming to that?
I really like it. I really love the like bluesy influences on it. I love jazz, and it's like this is not the type of like stuff I would normally listen to, but I think it's really interesting. And it's already, even though we played it for like a few hours yesterday, it became like towards the end, it became a lot more fun to play. And I know like once we get better at it and it becomes more comfortable, it's going to be really fun to play.
Kai, what are your what do you think the challenges are in that piece?
Oh, I think this piece is a little bit different because usually in like Grieg or Prokofiev or Haydn, we always have like duos or parts where we have together. And I think in this piece, we have like all of the parts together, like we all have similar parts. And
Yeah.
I think kind of difficult to put it together, but I also think it's really fun to put it together and see how it forms.
So this is my fun question, and I think Katarina probably remembers it from last year, but let's let the other guys answer it first, okay? So let's start with Nolan. Nolan, how would you describe your quartet's rehearsal style?
This is a difficult question for a number of reasons. Firstly, I would like to say we try to keep the rehearsal process very streamlined. Personally, I am very inclined to make things efficient. We have very little rehearsal time to begin with for what we're trying to achieve here. So it is of the utmost importance that we capitalize on it and make good use of it.
The audience may not know, but you come from distances, right, to rehearse. So it's not like you can just go across 10 minutes away and you can start a rehearsal. There's some driving involved, and there's a time commitment, and you have to plan very carefully.
Yeah, so
yeah.
Vivian and me both drive every Saturday. Vivian, I think it's around 2 hours, and same as me, a little bit more. And then Kai sometimes flies all the way from Florida. So we're quite a distance from each other. So we make best use, as Nolan said, of our rehearsal time. And we rehearse every Saturday and also a few other days in the week when we can. One of the most prominent rehearsal techniques that we use is recording ourselves and listening back. And we do that a lot. We work on a small section and then we audio record it and listen back, and that helps us to be more efficient.
We like to play in pairs together a lot. And we have the other group members listen back and give feedback to the ones that played in pairs. So we try to get the pair or the trio together really well before we play a section as a full quartet.
Yeah, I think that when we first start a piece, we'll try to go around the room and maybe ask what do you think of this spot? Or when we all try to have all of our ideas come together, we'll name an adjective that we all think of this section. And yeah, I think that's how we try to put our style into the pieces.
What does your coach tell you that you should focus on in the with the time frame being very limited? What does your coach emphasize for you?
So coaching fundamentally, it should be, and for us, I think it is, something, an hour to do something that cannot be done with ordinary rehearsal time without a coach, or at least is a little harder to do. So the coach ideally brings greater experience than the students have, brings a different perspective, regardless of experience. And the students will work to incorporate those perspectives into their playing. And that is the chief purpose of our coachings, I believe.
I think she adds a lot of the more she gives us a more emotional things to think about in regards to the piece, and she's helped us develop a quartet sound and a sort of style that we play in. When without her, I feel in most of our rehearsals we'll work on our ensemble and intonation and stuff like that, but we don't do that with her most of the time. It's more developing a unique sound, which is really nice.
Yeah, as Vivian said, she helps us a lot with blending, and as a part of that, she has given us a lot of feedback on how to bring out what the composer really wants and not just what we feel as a quartet. So a lot of the different ways to use our bows and bring out articulation and different phrasing has been very helpful.
Yeah, I think in the Haydn especially, matching our bow strokes is pretty difficult. So we really try to work hard with our coach on matching everything and blending everything.